We've made it. We've made it to the 1st of October. Finally, that dreaded month of September is over, more or less because it was just sideways, and that was incredibly boring. Incredibly boring. However, I do suspect that we're going to be looking at some new things for this month of October. Maybe not necessarily in the first week, but probably in the later half of October. My damn voice is leaving me right now. What's going on? Am I getting sick? I don't know. Anyways, more importantly, we're going to be going over October statistics, a few new things as far as some fundamental indicators go, and and then revisit some very beautiful long-term ideas here. Anyways, other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's a nice little Sunday morning over here, and let's just jump right into it. So first things first, I want to start it off with a revisit of the October statistics. Now that we do have, of course, September in the books, and with in mind October. And I should add that those September statistics, funnily enough, played out like very close to that average, which is eerie, I suppose. Doesn't mean it's always going to play within that regard. There should be some variance within these. In fact, these certainly will have their variance. But in this case, we're going to be looking at the returns for October specifically throughout the full history of Bitcoin. I've highlighted them all throughout here, as you can see. And over here, I've gone through the actual maths on this one. And we can see that 9 out of the total 13 October's, bad slip right there, were closing positive. So kind of like a bit of like the opposite effect as well of what we do expect in September. So again, just because September, traditionally speaking, does close to the downside, doesn't mean it's always going to. And in this case, same thing for October. We do see that, yes, there's a higher probability of that. In fact, October is actually the best month for Bitcoin. I know that it says September monthly over here, but I can assure you that this is indeed the October one, just a misnomer. But in this case, we can see that throughout the full history of Bitcoin, there has been an average return for the winning months of September about 28.5%. That's omitting, by the way, the most outlierish results, which there was a humongous outlier over here for the first October in Bitcoin's history. It's technically actually the second one, but the second one that actually had history for it, like a decimal place to measure off of. What I'm referencing, just so you have full information, is that you can see in October 09, the data that we have for price is just unhelpful. It opened at 0 and it closed at 0, but as you can see, price action was to the upside. So technically speaking, these stats should be a little bit better than what we are showing right here. But hey, fair enough. Anyways, omitting that result of more than 216% gainer, still almost 28.5% return for this one, with 1, 2, 3, 4 months above 30% and 3 months above 40%. Which is really impressive. What I'd also like to draw attention to with regards to October is that all Octobers have actually seen like pretty decent moves, except for actually the most recent one, which was a 5.5% move. And then you got this guy over here, or gal, who the hell knows? It's 2023 after all, of about just under 4% in this case. So, compared to September, which was one of the most boring times of all time in Bitcoin's history, should be at least better than that. Should be better than that. So let's go ahead and play around with the numbers here. Let's say that things do play out in the statistically relevant fashion, where we would expect, let's say, a winning month for the Boo laws, of course, and the average return is something to be going off of, which would give us about 28.5%. Again, omitting that very egregious result over here of 216%. Well, that would give us an area of interest, now that we actually officially have the open of October, of about around $35,000 basically. Again, going to be variance within these, but I do believe that is one of the areas of interest based off of perhaps one of our inverted fibs. If I draw one right here, yeah, what do you know? We do see that the 50% retracement is actually coming in with around that region, kind of around that region, in that $34,000 region. So an area of interest, let's say, but ultimately we can now go ahead and visit the downside average as well, because of course that is possible here. 8.5% basically to the downside, and what would that look like on top of current price action, or subtracted from current price action? That put Bitcoin actually below the September lows, and even below the June lows as well, actually. So that would be a lot more indicative of a major breakdown incoming. So definitely possible still. However, I would say that the probabilities are going to be favoring the Boo laws. One, based off of this, and then two, based off of several other things that we'll go over later and throughout this next coming week. Another big thing that Bitcoin did that it has not done since basically actually April of 2022, is that it has reclaimed the yellow 20 simple moving average right here. Just generally speaking, throughout the full history of Bitcoin, that's been a good governor as to when to be generally bullish or generally bearish. When Bitcoin's above it, good for the bull laws. When Bitcoin's below it, good for the bear laws. You can see, this area over here, or this area over here, small stint right there, and more recently this whole area right there. Anytime that Bitcoin's lost the 20 simple, it's not been good for the bulls. So we'll get rid of those because it's kind of a bit of an eyesore on my charts there. But that would imply that Bitcoin could very easily come back down and backtest that 20 simple moving average. In fact, basically backtesting the prior month's open as well. That would be September in the upper 25s, let's say. So again, this is not to say that Bitcoin's, given the go ahead for a green dildo party just to the heavens and moons beyond without any sort of recourse. There's going to be ups and downs even within the context of generally an upside month. So I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see another test back down around there. If it does happen, I personally would be looking at that as an opportunity with the understanding that, hey, if Bitcoin trades below September low, big bad problem for the bull laws. Until then, things looking, future looks bright for the bull laws, I suppose. All right, cool. So we've gone through that. What else do we want to get through? Yes. Okay. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's move on to the next chart. Let's go over here. This is a chart that we haven't visited on this channel for a while now. It is the accumulation and distribution indicator chart, a fundamentally based indicator. As you can see, well, actually not necessarily. I mean, it's just accumulation distribution. It's basically the net delta of buys and sells. It's what's going on, but maybe a few other things as well. But we don't need to get into that right now. What we need to get into is the relevancy of this. First and foremost, this chart did help us call the ultimate low in Bitcoin throughout all cycle lows thus far, and that was had by the slope changing whilst the indicator itself was in the red zone, going from a negative slope to a positive slope. So anytime that we've seen that marked off by these green vertical bars, that has essentially marked off that the low was already in. It doesn't mean that it was on the low, but the low was already in, and Bitcoin was getting ready to go through that sideways and up sort of grindy period. Now, taking that one step further, I wanted to measure out exactly where we do see this where we do see the current read as far as what that's indicated throughout Bitcoin's history here too. So in this case, you can see that, I just want to highlight this, so I'm going to get rid of that. We can see that the accumulation distribution indicator has gotten all the way up to almost 300,000, which if we go over the full history of Bitcoin, whenever it's gotten to that number, whenever it's gotten to that level, that has essentially been, as you can see with these cyan bluish lines, Bitcoin has essentially been preparing for more sideways and up. I want to call back to this one over here in 2012. Again, Bitcoin up, 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 sideways, 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 and big ups after that. Same thing over here, up, sideways, big fucking ups for the rest of the year. Same thing over here. This one was just basically the breakout of 2020, leading into that phenomenally impressive run of 2021. And once again, we see that this indicator is at that same level. So I always like referencing this one around the first of the, of the new month, of the new month. And in fact, now that I even recognize it, I don't know how much you can trust an indicator when it's this young over here, but if we were to put in the same sort of read, we could see that, that was basically kind of leading into the parabolic blow off of 2011. Again, I don't really trust things too much when they're like that young, but going throughout the full history of time, it does seem like there is a little bit of merit to that. So just another thing I wanted to point out right there as Bitcoin continues with the party. Anyways, yes, we've gone through that. We've gone through that now. Let's go into something also relevant here for the quarterly. The quarterly has closed, meaning that we are now heading into the fourth quarter of 2020. I almost said 2024. What I mean is to say is 2023. And we can see that the quarterly stochastic oscillator is going to have a chance to cross the upside, thus rejecting the bearish control zone, assuming that Bitcoin does close this next quarter, which means by the end of December, above 24,300. Now, to be fair, again, this really doesn't have too much history to populate. And for the history that we do have when it has crossed the upside, it's been generally good, but not a great timer. Let me see, do I have anything on right here? Yeah, let's actually get rid of all of this, and there goes my charts, I guess, but we could just draw some lines in when this happened in the past. Boom, boom. This one obviously not the best timer, but still long-term was generally good. And we'll have another chance to do it at the end of this quarter as well, within the context of extreme low volatility on the quarterly. A very long-term chart, I should add. So again, 24,300 going to be very important by the end of the year. And then we got the monthly, of course, as well, which closed last night. And the monthly stochastic sort of continues to the upside. Now the current pivot is 21,780 basically, or 770. I didn't write this one down in advance, or, I didn't write this one down what the September pivot was, but if memory serves me correctly, it was actually 22,000 or above 22,000. So this number has actually moved down, which is typically a good sign. But I could be wrong on that. I don't know if my memory is serving me within that regard on this particular instance. So looking at BBWP again, volatility. We're looking at the lowest lows basically that Bitcoin's ever seen on the monthly, so this is whatever the fuck's going on here is very, very big, as you can see. And for right now, stochastic momentum continues to favor the upside, and so far so good. Of course, the weekly closing a little bit later today as well, and we will see potentially the weekly stochastic momentum cross the upside for the first time in the same vicinity as what we did see in this beginning of the January run of this year. By the way, that was when Bitcoin went, from like 17,000 all the way up to 25 pretty fast. But it will have a chance to cross the upside, assuming today closes above 26,250. So far, so good. Almost $1,000 above that current pivot. And as of right now, supported by a positive DMI signature right here as well. Similar to what we did see in January of 2023. Not always a golden signal, but when we do see that the stochastic oscillator is crossing the upside around the critical zone, plus that DMI going in the same direction, those have led on to some pretty impressive runs. So I think I'll leave it there. Yeah. I do have this chart over here, but just kind of reiterates what I've been saying before. The quarterly does look kind of weird, just to say. Like if I was just looking at dildos, if I was just looking at dildos, I'd be looking at this and I'd be like, man, wouldn't be too crazy for it to come back down. But fair enough. Anyways, again, going off statistics, going off of mathematics, does seem like things are going to be favoring the Boo laws for October. It has been, traditionally speaking, the most nice month to Bitcoin in Bitcoin's history. And, if that's anything to go off of, then this October would be a damn good time for that to play on through. Again, keeping in mind that Bitcoin has now officially reclaimed that yellow 20 simple. Yeah, there was a small stint over here, but usually the first move above does get pushed back. It's the second one that is the important one. And then, of course, the accumulation distribution indicator and quarterly and monthly momentum. Have to be favoring the upside, I suppose. And I suppose we will continue on with this thread of analysis throughout this week. A few more things to add, but this video is probably already getting a little bit too long, so I will leave things right there. Also, I want to make a quick announcement, actually, for anyone who is for anyone who's in this community. As you know, I'm going to be competing in the Crypto Fight Night event on November 24th here in Dubai. If you are in Dubai at that time and you're just going to be there or whatever, or maybe you're even coming from that, who knows, and you're interested, I will get you a ticket. No problem. Just message me and we'll figure it out. So no problem there. They will be limited. I think they're going on sale this week. So I'll just, grab a bunch and we'll have a fun little time. So anyways, no commitment there. All good. But hopefully I will see you soon. And with that said, I want to wish you the best of the best. Take care. Much love and see you hopefully Monday.